I'm Lily Sisouvong. I'm currently attending the University of Rhode Island, and I have a unique position, I'd say. So my work, my job is focused around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the computer science education space. And so on campus, I don't have an official title, but I work on two programs. One of them, well, actually, they're both recent. So one of them is called Pathways to Success in Computer Science. And it's a great program. It's dedicated to um, underrepresented students in the computer science space and trying to retain them as we, give them financial support for housing, for dining, and full focus over the summer on one of their required courses. And we take them on field trips to tech companies and do workshops. So there's a lot that goes into it. So that's one program. And we currently just started, I don't know if this is considered a program, but it's a scholarship with IGT. And so our goal for that is to create a cohort of women in the computer science space um, for their next 4 years of their computer science education. Second job that I have is with the CSTA team. So my official job title, because I'm really happy that I have one in one of those jobs at least, is the broadening participation specialist. So um, my primary job here is to run this 6-week asynchronous course for K through 12th K through 12th grade teachers in computer science in Rhode Island, to kind of teach them inclusive pedagogical skills and, some learning strategies that maybe they haven't heard of yet. So that's what I do. I feel like computer science is such an interesting journey because it's in I should say now it's almost in every part of, your anyone's daily routine. But when I was really young, and I can't remember how young, I think maybe I was 5, I had a family member gift a computer to my family to use, and ever since then, he would teach me how to, like, there'd be games on the computer, and he would teach me those things, and since then, I've kind of had an interest in tech, even if I didn't know it. Um, and it wasn't really until I took my first computer science course my senior year in high school, and the reason why I ended up my main motivation is because one of my favorite characters on the show, on this particular show, it's called Criminal Minds. Her name's Penelope Garcia, and she's a tech analyst for the FBI. And I saw a lot of myself in her. She's someone who's super, um, how do I say this? She's very goofy. She's very um herself completely. And I really like that. And she wears a lot of different interesting dresses and outfits. And I like seeing that representation because in my mind, as a kid, I always saw computer science as something that wasn't for me because I couldn't see myself in it, and seeing her in it made me wanna join. So, I just decided to do it senior year. I didn't know what I wanted to study in college, and I did it, and I fell in love with it, and now I'm here. So I went to classical high school, and I took that class way back in 2018, I think, so a few years back. I think it was the second time they'd offered AP Computer Science at that school. When I took this class, it was senior year of high school. I took it on a whim because I told myself if I ended up liking this is what I'd major in, this is what I'd do for the rest of my life, which feels like such a high school thing to do because I was so dramatic. I was like, it's this or nothing. So I took it and I was like, maybe I'll have to force myself to like it. Then I actually started to take it. And I should also mention in context, I was a student who was really bad at math. Like, I would be happy if I came home with a C or like a passing grade in a math class. Um, and it wasn't until the year before that where I started to become interested in math and logical thinking and things like that, just because I finally had a teacher who um I not that I didn't respect, but someone who really got to know me and who um I just felt like I had a connection with him and I started to love math. And then the following year, I took computer science, and seeing that go hand in hand, like when I was writing for loops, or at least trying to understand what a for loop was, because I still wasn't the best student in that logic-based thinking, but it was really nice because it felt like I was using like faculties that I've never really used before, and it felt really engaging for me. And so yeah, using for loops, using while loops has been it was really fun. And I think that's experience that I remember the most. And that final project we did this JavaScript program with a partner in class. And I think that is one of my most memorable parts of the class, mostly because I remember looking at my friend and going, Evelyn, I have no clue what I'm doing. Like I like know what a for loop is. I know what a while loop is. What's next? Like what do I do with this? And so we were both struggling, but we ended up having a lot of fun with it. I think that's the most like the experience I've taken out of this. Like I had this notion that it wasn't for me, it was going to be something that's too difficult for me. I was going to try it anyway, and I was going to force myself to like it, and then all the opposite things just happened. I really loved it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I had a fun time trying to figure out what I was doing, which is something I wasn't expecting. Um, and yeah. Mm. So yeah, I do think students should be taking computer science in high school. I think that because I've seen so many people in my time in college who have done things like nursing or bio, or some position in biology or criminology or something like that. And those are amazing majors. Those are great fields to study in, but I've seen them kind of come out of those fields or even mid studying those fields and wonder like or not just feel a connection to them. And I would bring things up like, how about computer science? Like, have you considered that? Just because computer science, like I said earlier, it's embedded in every part, like every routine. I use it every day. I hop on the phone and I talk to my grandparents all the way in Laos, which is like 3 days away from where we are right now, by flight. And so it's embedded in every part of, you know, everywhere. So computer science is in everything. It's in fashion, it's in movies, it's in regular software development for, products. And I'm getting out, I'm like kind of rambling, but it's in everything. And I feel like it's such a position to be in where you can study one thing and then work wherever you want. And I feel like it opens a lot more doors for students, especially when they don't exactly know what they want to do, or they have some idea, but they are not 100% in it yet. And so I've had friends come out of other fields and wonder, like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I don't know what I want to do. I think I'm a little lost in life. And I always suggest, programming, starting to learn Python or anything, because I feel like programming is it's such a good skill to have these days. And so many times they'll say something like, "Oh, I wasn't good at math," or "I don't think I'm smart enough to do this," or "I don't think I can do this." But I feel like that's why it's important to have computer science in high school, to show students that it's not something that no student can like attain, that only like the most proficient or like students who have all A pluses have can only take. So I think it's important to show them that this is something that anyone can take. My first piece of advice would be and I feel like this applies to a lot of things. When you have a really big task, this is kind of a programming, tip, but I figured I'd throw it in. Um, if you're, working with a task that's really large or a problem that's really large, always break it down into smaller pieces and solve those smaller pieces first. And I feel like that's also applicable to life as well, because when you're facing things like, am I going to go to college? Am I going to major in a certain, field? What am I going to do after life? It's really important to, you know, recognize that those are really broad questions that students have, that I had. And breaking it down really helps. Like for me, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to study, I looked up like the 200 majors on like a piece of paper and I was like, okay, I got to narrow this down, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I started asking myself things like, what is a good job to have right now? What's a job that's making money? And it's okay to think about things like that as well, because it's realistic. And I used to think like, oh, like what can I do that's going to align with things that I kind of have other interests in personally. So when I was young, I really liked makeup. I really liked movies. I obviously with the TV show. And so I was like, what job can I do that will kind of be the intersection of all these things, or give me the opportunity to be in a position where I can attain those things. So it's really important to break things down because that's the way that I figured out that I really want to do computer science. Um, and I think, take a deep breath. No, don't be like me and be dramatic and think that, it's all or nothing. But computer science is really a good career to have. And I feel like you would never regret taking a computer science class. I think it would only aid in your resume. And if you don't like it, at least you could like say that you're a programmer, that you programmed. And I feel like that's really cool to say.